Let's talk about creating value, your personal experience. And the first thing under this category that I want to talk about is the importance of sharing your personal experience with your clients. You know, if you have a story to tell, if you've gone from rags to riches, then it's important for you to share that. They want to know a little bit about you, where you're coming from. Where are you coming from? What's your personal experience? You want to share that with clients a little bit. Now, I always say that when you work with a client, don't share anything beyond what they want to hear. So in most cases, this will be when you're talking with them on the phone before you even start working with them. They want to get to know you. They want to know that you know something about struggle and how to overcome that. So you want to share your personal experience with clients. What have you had experience with? What have you done? And not just with yourself, but what have you done with clients? What has your personal experience been with clients? When you work with clients and you experience things and they bring things to the table and you help them find solutions to that, well, how about sharing some of that with your clients, especially prospective clients? They want to know a little bit about that. They want to hear about that. They want to know that they're not the first ones who have had a financial challenge in a business where you've stepped in and helped them. Now, if you are, then you're not going to be able to share much, of course. But if you have had that experience, and this is going to grow over time, so don't worry if you don't have a lot of experience under your belt when you start out, because nobody does. The greatest person in any career, in any category, has to start somewhere. Everyone started somewhere. Einstein started somewhere. He didn't jump right in and become the world's most famous physicist. He started working in a patent office. He was a nobody. Nobody knew who he was and nobody cared. Then he worked his way up. But if you have experience, it's important to share that with your clients, both your personal experience and your personal experience of working with other people. Make it personal. They want to know that the person they're dealing with is someone who's able to deliver. And they're going to know this through the experience you share. And this brings up the idea of challenges you have overcome. What have you personally worked on that you overcame? Now, most of this information should be available on your website or on a brochure or in your initial conversation with your client before they start working with you. That's where most of this is going to come into play. When you talk about creating value, they're going to want to know the value you can create before they pay you any money. So you're going to want to share a lot of this information with them ahead of time, but your personal experience really comes into play. What have you overcome? What's your rags to riches story? You know, and Tony Robbins, one of the most influential, motivational people ever to live, when he gives a talk, he will many times remind people of his rags to riches story. He started out as a guy who was living in that, the one-bedroom studio in Venice, California. And he was eating bologna from a store that he had to steal. And he wasn't proud of it, but that's the way it was. And he worked as a janitor. And the next thing you know, he's a multimillionaire. Of course, there's a tremendous struggle in between. But you get the point. He had a rags to riches journey. You want to look at your life in terms of that. What challenges did you overcome? When you were working on yourself, what did you do? Out of the depths of your soul, what did you bring up? What tools did you use to fix yourself? People love stories like this. When I say stories, I mean something that's true. I mean an actual account of something that's true. But when you focus on your rags to riches story, remember that if you had certain wonderful things happen to you, that's not part of this story. This story is about the struggle part. So focus on the struggle parts. People want to hear that. When you go to see a movie, a Hollywood movie, what are two things that always happen? Number one, there's a struggle that's overcome. There's resolution at the end. Number 2, there's a love story in there. So we're focusing on component number 1 here, the struggle. They want to know that you've been down in the trenches and that you overcame. Again, the story is not appropriate if they've already hired you and they really don't want to hear your personal story. If they've already hired you, then you're in. You don't have to sell yourself anymore. You sell yourself then by getting the job done, not by telling your rags to riches story. So most of this is going to be for you to get other clients, to lure them in, to draw them into your zone, to get them interested in you. Because once they're interested in you, then you're able to work with them and you're able to get paid and be successful and financially abundant and so forth and so on. What about goals you have accomplished? You should have a list of things that you've already done. And again, this should be on your website. On my website, I always list my educational challenges that I've overcome by listing my degrees. These are goals that I had at one time, and now I have degrees to show that I've reached these goals. You should have certain goals that you have accomplished, not just becoming a life coach, but other things. Maybe you started a family. Maybe you moved somewhere and started a business. Maybe you wanted to help somebody, so you started a nonprofit organization to help a person, and then you ended up helping a lot of people through your organization. You reached out to the entire world, perhaps. Who knows? Whatever it is, you want to put down goals that you have accomplished. If you haven't accomplished any goals, then they're going to wonder why you are a life coach. Think about that. If a coach of a football team never actually played the sport and never actually won anything, or if their team never actually did anything, they've never accomplished anything at all, then why would the next team want to hire that coach or work with that coach? It doesn't make any sense. You want to put down a list of things that you've done. And you can say this in a nice way on a personal part of your website where you talk about your personal life. I married the woman of my dreams. I started a business and so forth. It's not going to sound like bragging as long as you do it the right way. And the right way is just through telling a story. You're just sharing your story with them. So if you have a brochure, it should be in there, at least a synopsis of it, at least a paragraph about it. If you have a website, which I know you're going to have, right? You're going to have a website. Make sure you have a website. Then it's going to be on there also. Goals you have accomplished. What have you done? I'm Steve G. Jones. I've created the world's largest library of hypnosis recordings. And they're available online. That's something I've done. I'm proud of it. I want people to know that. I want people to know that I, at the very least, know how to make a hypnosis recording. I know how to make a bunch of them. I want the world to know that. I got a doctorate in education. I want people to know that. These are things that I've done. So I'm not just some guy who's sitting around who's willing to hypnotize you if you want me to. I've done things. I've proven myself, as it were. People want to know that you've proven yourself. You've done things for yourself. You have accomplished things. You're a person who goes out there and makes it happen. If not, if they don't see this, then they're going to wonder why in the world would they hire you? If you can't even help yourself, how can you help them? So, no matter how minuscule you think your accomplishments may be, I don't know what you've done, but even if you've just done a few things, you can find a few things in your life, I promise you. If you search through what you've done, you can find a few things that are really great, that are really outstanding, that are really amazing. And if you don't know what to put on there on your website or brochure, ask your friends, hey, what about me is amazing? What have I done that's really impressive? And then put that on. Being authentic. When you are authentic, you are really, really giving of yourself and creating value and sharing of yourself, sharing your personal experience. You want to be authentic. You want to make sure that when you share with them things that you have accomplished, that you're being real and you're being genuine. You know, some of the best speakers, I'll mention Tony Robbins again, really genuine, really authentic speaker. Some of the best speakers in the world, when they give a speech, they're so genuine, they're so authentic that they kind of lose themselves a little bit in what they're saying. And Tony Robbins will even drop the F-bomb sometimes on stage. I don't do that because I just feel it doesn't go well with my image. So whether I'm on stage or working one-on-one with someone, I will not drop the F-bomb. But I'm saying that as an example of authenticity. If that's who you are, if that's the way you communicate, then be yourself. When you're creating value, when you're sharing your personal experience, you should be yourself. You should be authentic. Now, certain times you may need to tone that down a little bit. You may need to trim that tree, as they say in acting. You may need to bring it in a little bit. But being authentic means that you're coming from a point of view that's you. You're not starting out from somewhere else. If you want to be the coolest person in the world, and you end up acting like James Bond, let's say we're talking about a male, and the male wants to be the coolest person in the world. They end up acting like James Bond. What if James Bond is not really what they're all about? What if they don't like wearing suits? What if they don't have a British accent? What if they don't like driving sports cars? But they're doing all those things so they can fit in. How's it going to feel when they put that on in the morning, when they put on that fake persona? It's going to feel fake, isn't it? It's going to feel inauthentic. It's going to feel like something they wish they could take off right away. Well, I don't want you to get yourself into this position. I look at comedians sometimes, and I look at Jerry Seinfeld. He one time said that he feels sorry for people like Carrot Top, have you seen the comedian Carrot Top, who have to use props. Because I don't think he mentioned Carrot Top in particular, but he feels sorry for those people who have to use props or I believe he said put on some kind of an accent or some kind of an act. You know comedians who do that. They always have a quirkiness about them that's not real. Larry the Cable Guy comes to mind. He has an imitation accent that he'll use. He's a comedian, and he'll say, "Hey, how you doing?" But you hear him talking off camera, and he talks completely differently. It's an act. He has to put it on. If he's okay with that, if that's what he leans towards anyway, if he'd really like to talk like that, then it's fine. If Carrot Top really wants to use props, then that's fine. But it can be inauthentic if you don't feel it. Keep in mind, you're going to have to wear it every day. Developing rapport. When you're creating value, when you're sharing your personal experience, whether it's in a brochure or a website, or from time to time with your client in the office, you want to take that opportunity, and really any opportunity, to develop rapport. Developing rapport never goes out of style. There's never a wrong time to develop rapport, especially when you're creating value by sharing your personal experience. You can take that opportunity to create tremendous rapport. They're going to relate to you more directly. They're going to be able to see themselves in you, perhaps. So as you create value by sharing your personal experience, you really want to keep in mind that it's all about developing rapport. All of these things are. Sharing the challenges that you've overcome, sharing the goals that you've accomplished, being authentic. It's all about developing rapport. So you always want to look for ways that you can develop rapport with the person that you're working with. Not just the ways that I've listed, but really any way that you think of. Because developing rapport is sort of like money in the bank. It's sort of like a reserve savings account. If something goes wrong, if the company's downsizing and they're looking for ways to cut things, and you've got tremendous rapport with the person you're working with, they are going to look for ways to keep you. Trust me when I say this. They're going to look for ways to keep you. I remember when the company that I own was looking for ways to tighten things up and to slim down, and my assistant was looked at. She's a wonderful person, does a great job. Do you think for a minute that I would tolerate the possibility of her job being eliminated? No way, because we had tremendous rapport. Not only that, but she does a great job. So rapport goes a long way in terms of not only getting your foot in the door, but keeping your foot in the door. So always look for ways to develop rapport, but especially when you're creating value by sharing your personal experience, create that one-on-one rapport so they can relate to you. They know you're a human, and you can really start to build something from there. What about defining your focus? If I'm a hypnotherapist and I want to work with everyone who will come into my office, that's fine. But what I found out when I was working in Beverly Hills was that defining my focus went a long way. And this was actually suggested to me initially by a lady who was downstairs in the same office. I was in the Roxbury Medical Building, 90210 Roxbury Drive in Beverly Hills, top of the world. And I had a great office. And I was in an office and building with a lot of plastic surgeons and so forth. It wasn't unusual for me to see Hulk Hogan or Brad Pitt walking around. It wasn't unusual for me to have a celebrity client. It was commonplace. But once I defined my focus and I said, I'm going to work with these certain types of people with these certain types of problems, or challenges rather, then I started to really get some power. So I started to put it on my website. I started to put it in my brochure. I started to put it out in speeches that I would give around Beverly Hills. And then I started working with the people I wanted to work with. I wanted to work with people who wanted to lose weight, who wanted to stop smoking, and who wanted to be better actors. I was working with actors, very well-paid actors who you've heard of, and I wanted to work with more of them. And so I started putting that out there. I started defining my focus, and I started sharing my personal experience in terms of helping me define my focus. I started sharing things like what a shy kid I was when I was younger. Because I was a shy kid, I want to help people come out of their shell. And that's why I like working with actors, because they're kind of like that. In many cases, actors were shy kids, and they're trying to come out of their shell and develop themselves. So I'd work with beginning actors, but then I also got famous actors. My father had passed away from emphysema, from smoking. So I wanted to work with smokers. I started putting that out there. People understood. They related to that. They didn't want to die. They had loved ones who they didn't want to have pass away, so they started sending them to me. Weight loss people, I related to the struggle. Though I never was overweight myself, I related to the struggle that people go through when they want something and it's working against them. So I put that out there, and I started getting weight loss patients. So in creating value and sharing my personal experience, I defined my focus, and it worked, and it will work for you.